My name is Lily, and for the past 7 years, I've been the CEO of a retail company. On paper, my role sounded impressive, managing hundreds of employees across multiple stores, overseeing operations, and driving growth strategies. It's the kind of title people imagine as glamorous, filled with power and prestige. But the truth? Somewhere along the way, I'd grown distant. I hadn't stepped foot in one of our stores to truly see how things operated on the ground in years. My understanding of what our employees faced each day had become little more than secondhand reports in emails and slides in boardroom meetings. That's why, when corporate suggested an undercover program to reconnect with our employees and understand their challenges firsthand, I agreed. The idea was to take on a new identity, work alongside the team as a fresh hire, and gain real insight. It sounded simple enough in theory, but I wasn't prepared for what it would actually feel like. For 2 weeks, I became Lisa, a new part-time employee at one of our busiest locations. From the moment I stepped into that store, I realized how much I'd underestimated the pace and intensity of the work. The first day was chaos. Customers flowed through the aisles like a river that never stopped. They called out for help, filled their carts, and squeezed past each other as the team rushed to restock shelves and keep things running smoothly. The sharp squeak of carts on the tiled floor echoed around me, and I felt like I was in a whirlwind. I tried to keep up, but it was harder than I imagined. By the end of my shift, my feet ached, and my arms felt like jelly from unloading boxes in the stockroom. But amidst all the noise and motion, one person stood out. Caleb. Caleb worked the evening shift, primarily handling the stockroom and shelves. He wasn't the loudest or the fastest, but there was something about him. He moved with purpose, his quiet demeanor masking a kind of quiet efficiency. He didn't call attention to himself, yet I noticed how other team members relied on him without realizing it. One evening, after most of the team had clocked out, I stayed late to help Caleb organize a chaotic corner of the stockroom. I couldn't help but ask, "You always stick around after your shift ends. Why?" He shrugged, keeping his focus on a stack of boxes. "Just want to make sure everything's done right," he said simply, as if that explained everything. There was something in his tone, steady, but with a hint of something deeper. I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't press him further that night, but I found myself watching him more closely after that. I didn't realize then just how much more there was to Caleb. Beneath his quiet exterior was a story waiting to be uncovered. It was late one evening, about a week into my undercover assignment, when I discovered something about Caleb that would change everything. The store had closed for the night, and most of the team had gone home. The aisles were finally silent, and I was finishing up some last-minute cleaning. That's when I heard it. Music. It wasn't coming from the speakers. This was live, raw, and hauntingly beautiful. The sound was soft at first, just a few notes that drifted down the hall like a whisper. I followed the melody, my curiosity leading me to the break room. There, tucked in the corner by the vending machines, was an old upright piano. I'd seen it before, but thought it was little more than a decoration. Caleb sat on the bench, his back to me, his fingers gliding effortlessly over the keys. The music was incredible, delicate yet powerful, each note filled with so much emotion that I felt a lump rise in my throat. Then he started to sing. His voice was rich and soulful, with a depth that made the room feel alive. Every word carried a weight that resonated deep in my chest. I stood frozen in the doorway, afraid to move or even breathe too loudly. It felt like I was witnessing something sacred, something he wasn't ready to share with the world. Eventually, Caleb noticed me. He stopped playing abruptly and spun around, his face flushing red. I didn't know anyone was still here," he stammered, his voice shaky. I stepped into the room, smiling gently. "That was incredible," I said, my words coming out softer than I expected. "You're really talented, Caleb." He shook his head, looking down at his hands. "It's just a hobby," he mumbled. "I'm not that good." I blinked, stunned by his response. "Not that good? Caleb, you're amazing. Why don't you play more often?" He hesitated, his fingers brushing the edge of the piano keys. "I don't know. It's just something I do for myself." In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen and heard. I started asking Caleb more questions during our breaks, gently nudging him to open up. Slowly, his story unfolded. Caleb had grown up in foster care, bouncing from one home to another. Music had been his only constant, the one thing he could rely on when everything else felt uncertain. But he'd never thought of himself as anything special. "I'm just a guy who plays piano," he said one day, shrugging. But to me, he wasn't just a guy who played piano. He was something extraordinary, even if he didn't see it yet. When my undercover assignment ended, I thought returning to the corporate office would help me settle back into the familiar rhythm of meetings, reports, and looming deadlines. Yet, as I sat in those conference rooms, discussing sales figures and strategizing growth plans, my thoughts kept drifting back to Caleb. His music played in my mind like a melody that refused to fade, and the image of him at that old piano haunted me. The emotion in his voice, the vulnerability in his playing, it had moved me in a way I hadn't expected. I couldn't shake the feeling that his talent was meant for something greater than being confined to a dusty break room. Caleb had a gift, one that deserved to be shared with the world. But how? I wasn't a music producer or a talent scout. I ran a retail business. And Caleb, well, he wasn't the type to put himself in the spotlight. He seemed comfortable staying in the background, unnoticed and unappreciated. Still, I couldn't ignore the pull to do something. It was more than a feeling, it was a responsibility. Then, inspiration struck. My old college friend, Claire, ran a music program that supported budding artists. She'd spent years helping people discover and showcase their talent. I called her immediately, my heart racing with excitement as I explained Caleb's story. By the time I finished, Claire was just as intrigued as I was. "He sounds incredible," she said. "We're hosting a talent showcase in a few weeks. Bring him. Let him perform. This could be the perfect opportunity for him." Her enthusiasm gave me hope, but convincing Caleb wasn't going to be easy. I waited until my next day off and visited the store after his shift. He was organizing boxes in the stockroom when I found him, the faint hum of the air conditioning filling the quiet space. "Caleb, can we talk for a minute?" I asked, taking a seat on one of the overturned crates. He glanced up, wiping his hands on his work apron. "Sure, what's up?" I took a deep breath. "I found a way for you to share your music. There's a local talent showcase coming up, and I think you should perform." His reaction was immediate. He laughed, shaking his head. "You're joking, right? Me? On a stage? I've never done anything like that." I didn't laugh with him. "I'm serious, Caleb. Your music deserves to be heard. This isn't about me, it's about you and your talent. This could be your chance to show people what you can do." His expression shifted, the humor fading into something more vulnerable. "What if I mess up? What if no one likes it?" I leaned forward, my voice soft but firm. "What if they do like it? What if you walk out there and change someone's life the way your music changed mine? You've got nothing to lose, Caleb. Just try. You might surprise yourself and everyone else." It took several conversations and a lot of reassurance before he finally agreed. The night of the showcase came faster than I expected. The small theater was packed, buzzing with energy as friends, family, and music enthusiasts filled the seats. Caleb stood backstage, gripping the edge of the curtain like it was his lifeline. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands trembled as he wiped them on his jeans. "You're going to be amazing," I whispered, placing a hand on his arm. "Just play like you always do. Remember, this is your story. Share it with them." He gave me a small nod, though the nervousness in his eyes remained. When his name was called, he walked onto the stage slowly, his steps hesitant. His eyes darted around the room, wide with uncertainty. He sat down at the piano, his fingers hovering over the keys as he took a deep, shaky breath. And then he began to play. The transformation was breathtaking. The tension in his body melted away as the music flowed from his fingers. His voice, soft and tentative at first, grew stronger with each note, filling the room with raw emotion. It wasn't just a performance, it was a story, a glimpse into his soul. Every chord, every lyric carried the weight of his struggles and the hope that had kept him going. The room fell silent, the audience captivated. No one moved, no one spoke. They were spellbound. When the final note faded into the air, there was a heartbeat of silence before the applause erupted. It was thunderous, a standing ovation that seemed to shake the walls. People were clapping, cheering, even wiping away tears. Caleb sat there for a moment, stunned, as if he couldn't believe what had just happened. As he stood and gave a small bow, his eyes searched for mine. When they found me, I smiled, clapping as hard as I could. In that moment, I knew this was only the beginning of something extraordinary. That performance was more than just a moment. It was a turning point for Caleb. As he stepped off the stage, the audience still on their feet and clapping, he looked dazed, like he couldn't quite process what had just happened. I caught his eye and gave him a thumbs up, my heart swelling with pride. As the crowd began to disperse, a man approached Caleb, a tall, well-dressed man with a warm, easy smile. I watched as the two of them exchanged a handshake, the man leaning in to say something. Curious, I moved closer, catching snippets of their conversation. "You've got something special," the man said, his voice steady and confident. "I'm a music producer and I'd love to help you record a demo. You've got a raw talent that people need to hear." Caleb looked stunned, his usual composure momentarily replaced with wide-eyed disbelief. "A demo?" he repeated, as though the words were foreign to him. The producer nodded. "Let's talk. No pressure, but I see real potential in you." When the man walked away, Caleb turned to me, his expression a mix of excitement and fear. "Did that really just happen?" I smiled. "It did, and you deserve every bit of it." But getting Caleb to take that next step wasn't as simple as it seemed. Over the following days, he wrestled with doubt. "What if I'm not good enough?" he admitted during one of our conversations. "What if this is just a fluke?" "Caleb," I said firmly, looking him in the eye, "the world doesn't hand out opportunities like this to just anyone. That producer saw what I saw in you, a gift. Don't let fear hold you back." After a lot of encouragement, he finally agreed to meet with the producer. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind for Caleb. He recorded his first demo, a collection of heartfelt songs that captured the raw emotion of his performances. His music started to gain traction, first in small, intimate spaces like cafes and open mic nights, and then at local festivals where larger crowds began to take notice. Each performance seemed to chip away at his insecurities, building his confidence one song at a time. He started standing taller, speaking more assertively, and smiling more freely. Watching him transform was like seeing a flower bloom after a long winter. It was beautiful and humbling all at once. Months later, I was back in the corporate office, buried under a pile of paperwork, when there was a knock at my door. I glanced up, expecting one of my assistants, but instead I saw Caleb standing there, a small package in his hands. "Caleb," I exclaimed, genuinely surprised. "What are you doing here?" He stepped inside, his posture straighter, his presence more self-assured. He looked so different from the quiet, reserved man I'd met months ago. "I just wanted to thank you," he said, his voice steady and filled with warmth. He handed me the package, and when I opened it, I found a CD inside. His name was printed on the cover in bold letters, and beneath it was the title of his first official release. "You saw something in me I didn't see in myself," he said, his smile soft but full of emotion. "If it weren't for you, I'd still be stocking shelves and playing piano alone in the break room. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." His words hit me like a wave. My throat tightened as I blinked back the sting of tears. "You had it all along, Caleb," I said softly. "I just gave you a little push." We shared a smile, one that spoke volumes. As Caleb left, I sat there holding the CD, running my fingers over the smooth surface. I felt an overwhelming sense of pride, not just in him, but in what his journey had taught me. Going undercover hadn't just been about understanding my employees better, it had been about rediscovering the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary. Caleb's story reminded me that everyone has potential, often buried beneath layers of fear and self-doubt. Sometimes all it takes is someone to see it, to believe in it, and to nurture it. For Caleb, all it took was a piano, a little courage, and someone who listened. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more like it, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Your likes and comments mean the world to us. They inspire us to create even better content. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Caleb's journey? Have you ever experienced a moment where someone believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself? And if this story touched your heart, share it with your friends and family. You never know, your share might be the encouragement someone else needs to find their own hidden talent. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in the next story.